well, Alien Fest a couple years ago. And the town sure knows how to make a buck off of this whole alien event. I'll give them credit where credit is due. With the street lamps, for example, are, shaped like alien heads, and, the Arby's has an alien on the Arby's sign, and they make it real fun. At the festival, they had picnic tables with boxes of tinfoil, and you could make your own tinfoil hat. They had a lot of fun with it. But on a serious note, they had a great alien museum, awesome alien museum. They had models of what the aliens that supposedly were found in that crash in the museum. They had this really cool lid. It was like a lid to a wooden box. Something called the something of Palenque, and it was found in Mexico. I think it was the Aztecs design. And if you saw the wood carvings on the box lid, it looked like a astronaut in a rocket. That's exactly what it looked like. An astronaut jammed in the cockpit of a rocket. This lid of the box was, made hundreds and hundreds of years ago. So there is something to all of this. And I did have a great time at Roswell. There was all kinds of experts. There were government officials. One was from Canada, and he, stepped down from his position, but he was talking about the things that led him to become an alien believer. There were clips of people around the world. The Prime Minister of Japan, his wife, is a believer in aliens. There's becoming a more and more credible people who are not part of the conspiracy of keeping all of this quiet are coming forth and talking about it. So my husband and I had a really awesome time watching the speakers and going to the museum and looking at the exhibits. We just became even more convinced that aliens do exist.
Well, I think they do, because it's just too many things, I don't know if you know who Timothy Cullen is. He was, I think, number 13 implant removal from Dr. Roger Lear. Now, he's been on my show several times. I totally believe everything he says. And, I've talked to other people that, might have been or have been implanted. So I do think that we are being visited. I mean, also the cattle mutilations. I've had people on here deny that's happening. They're saying it's the military doing it to scare people. But, I have acquaintance that did work for a government agency who sent me some photographs of mutilations of humans, like in Brazil, and then in a couple other places in South America, and along around the rainforest, mutilations of humans. And same type of things were being done with those humans that were done with the cattle. And that really scares me.
It should. It should. These aliens aren't playing around by any means. Some people think that they have the ability to shape shift, and they're already here. There's one race called the reptilian race, which, have ties to the whole New World Order, inner circle conspiracy theory. Kind of a crackpot type of a guy. His name was David Icke, or David Icke, is spelled I-C-K-E. I don't know if you ever heard of him.
I think so, yes. The name sounds really familiar, yes.
He was kind of famous maybe 10 years ago. He wrote some books in the 90s and the 2000s that were about these reptilian race of aliens, and he believed that the world's inner circle were all related, and it all came back to the Rothschild family and the Queen of England, and how they were really shapeshifters and this reptilian alien race. I know it sounds so ridiculous, but some of what he said held a lot of water, and some of what he said was racist, which, discounted him with most people. But other things he said that had nothing to do with some of the racist things, like the whole bloodline, everybody's connecting back to the Rothschild family, was kind of interesting. I never read any of his books, but I've read articles about him. Strange guy, and the things that he says sound kind of nutty, but he did raise a lot of good points about why does everybody in the world who is a leader and super wealthy somehow relate back to this Rothschild family.
And they seem to do that. That's what's interesting. Especially a lot of presidents have too. But what gets me is, if people, I get all the time people sending me messages, and emails telling me that, I should lay off about the aliens. They're here to save the earth and save mankind, and they're here nothing more than to help mankind. But I look at this, if they're here to help us, if they take somebody out of their bed or out of their car and transport them into wherever, right, and experiment with them and return some of them, because I got a funny feeling a lot of people don't get returned, because that's why we have so many missing people. But then, when they do get returned, they were taken against their wishes. They were taken either while they were sleeping. They never gave permission. Hey, I'm going to go on a spaceship with you. I'm going to let you prod me. I'm going to let you, do all this stuff. You're going to, inflict pain on me and all this stuff. Yeah, I don't believe that. So I don't think all of them are here to be friendly to mankind and serve mankind.
I totally agree. So I think there's different races of aliens, and just like here on Earth, we've got different groups of people who are competing for power. I think on a universal galactical level, we've got different groups of aliens who are competing for different spots within the galaxy. So, sure, there might be some aliens like the Greys. They say the Greys are supposedly the passive race that have been kicked around. Usually the subservient types who end up as somebody's slaves. Okay, well, maybe they are here to help us. They're not aggressive. They're passive and quiet. Okay. But then again, now we start talking about reptilians. We were talking about Hitler earlier. Well, they've got aliens called the Nordics, which have Atlantean roots, which Hitler based the whole Aryan race off of. Was that this Aryan race were descendants from the Atlanteans. Well, if any of this is true, Hitler, I think, showed the whole world how aggressive he is. So if his group of people are descendants, well, they're descendants descendants of warlords. So they're not here to do us good. They're here to do us harm. They're here to take over. So we've got different groups to deal with, I guess is my point. I'm kind of on a tangent here.
I think
of course.
I think there's a lot of different species of aliens that's been coming, to Earth. But, the cattle mutilations and the people mutilations has been going on for a long time. I would think they would have got all their information after, several, abductions of cows and cattle and people. But it seems to keep going on and off. I was mentioning on my show the other night, about 4 months ago, I had a trucker, a long haul trucker, it rode his, semi at night, not during the day. And he was either coming in or coming out of a desert. And he noticed a bright light coming from, his driver's side door window. And he was looking at it, and he swears he saw this bright light and a cow going up in the sky. It shook him up so bad he stopped. He looked out the window. He didn't hear no helicopter, didn't hear any noise. He couldn't see any, ropes, chains, or anything. But here's this cow going head first up in the sky. And, probably, another abduction of, cattle to go through the mutilation like they normally do. It was enough where it shook him up, where he told his boss, I can't do this anymore at night.
Well, in some cultures, specifically the Hindu culture, cows are sacred. So that's, kind of interesting how we've got cattle mutilation. Well, why not deer mutilation? Why not moose mutilation? Why not fox mutilation? Why not pig mutilation? No, it's cow mutilation. Well, and then in other cultures, they worship the bull. So, again, that's in the cow family. So there's something to all of this. The ancient people in this world were trying to tell us something, whether it was through their sacred books, and they were misguided, whatever the reason, it's still going on. Why would aliens pick of all of the animals to mutilate? Why do they keep picking cows? There's something to that.
Well, I was told because genetically some of their, the blood or something that's very close to human. That's what I was told. But you know what? I also had a guest on recently. He saw a huge elk. He was out in the woods. The same thing. The elk all of a sudden got zapped up in the sky, and going through the brush and going straight up through the trees, branches. And so I got a feeling it's more than his cows. We just probably don't notice that. I mean, a farmer's going to notice a $500 or $1,000 or $5,000 dollar bull disappearing or, being, mutilated on his property over, a goat or, some other type of animal.
It's very weird, isn't it?
Well, it scares me. It really does.
And then there's those crop circles, too.
That's one thing I've read about a lot of those. And what really interests me, nobody bothers to check, a lot of sightings of UFOs, supposedly when they have landed, they kind of like leave droplets like mercury behind. And, there was another talk show I was listening to, and I had to text him. I just had a chat with him. And I asked him, I said, well, did they do any checking at all for like any mercury droplets around, the crop circles? Maybe it was a UFO coming down and landing or whatever, and they said, no, they've never been a report for anybody checking on that. And that's something they should be checking for.
Yeah. Mercury, there's something with anti-gravity, propulsion, and mercury.
Well, it is.
I'm not... Go on. I'm sorry.
I had a guest on here a couple times. Now, when he was a boy, I think around 13 years old, I can't remember the town where they lived at, and I do remember his father was a dispatcher for the local police department. And all of a sudden, they got a call in. Supposedly, a UFO landed in the hospital parking lot. And by the time they got the cop cars there, to investigate, it was no helicopter. no UFO there. But there was like about a 30, 40 foot round circle, and where the asphalt melded. It was melted, and then it was like droplets of mercury all around the place. And the funny thing is that during the night, they had it all, taped off where people couldn't go. And in the morning, the whole parking lot was repaved during the middle of the night.
Mm.
You know, in the police department, you know, according to the guy, his father and all that, nobody was aware that was going to be happening.